Please listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
Welcome to Practical Bass, where each week we take a topic of interest to you, the working bass player, and we kind of dissect it and look at it from a bunch of different angles and hopefully present some information that is new and helps you elevate your gigs and your gear to the next level. You can subscribe to this podcast very easily. Simply visit our website at practicalbass.com and click on the subscribe link, and you'll find instructions for your favorite podcasting apps. Whether you use the Podcasts app on an iPhone, Google Play Music on an Android phone, if you use iTunes on your Mac computer, Stitcher Radio on any platform, or just about any podcatching app that's out there for your computer or mobile device, you can find Practical Bass there. Just search for Practical Bass, and when the subscribe link comes up, you just hit it, and you'll receive a fresh episode delivered to you weekly with all the latest goings on here from the Practical Bass crew. You can also give us some feedback anytime you feel like it. We love to hear from our listeners. If you'd like to ask about various topics that you would like to hear us ramble or discourse on, if you'd like to offer some criticism or some feedback on something that you've heard, we would love to hear from you. It's what makes it all worthwhile for us. You can also do that through our website at practicalbass.com. Just click on the contact link and fill out the form, and we receive those emails. We read everything we get there. But you can also find us on social networks. Facebook is a great place to find us. Just look for Practical Bass, and you can like our page and send your feedback there. You can also find us on Twitter, on Google+. You can even find us on Instagram, and every once in a while we share crazy photos of what the crew is doing here, like my co-host Dave here. I think just last week I sent out a post from our Practical Bass feed showing you hard at work at a gig.
I mean, that was pretty hard at work. That's for sure. I work hard. I work hard for my money.
Yeah, you do.
I work hard for my $35.
You are a hardworking man in showbiz around here. So Dave, what are we gonna talk about this week?
This week we talk about cables.
Cables.
Oh, cables.
You know, I thought last week was dry with the whole DI thing, right? Like we socked them with a lot of pretty dry information.
You know, my mom always told me, when you go dry, go drier. Just take it down a notch. Let's really get it. So we're gonna do cables.
Yeah, but come on, like, I mean, so in my mind, as I'm like thinking about this topic, right, when it came to us, I'm thinking, how much is there to say about cables, right? I mean, a cable's a cable, right?
It is. But a cable's a cable.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, we've got a million of them, right? Like there's literally like a million cables laying on the floor right now of the Practical Bass studios here.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Like, are there baskets of them, bags of them, things hanging like everywhere? Every studio, every musician always just has like a problem with cables.
Yes to all of those.
I literally was downsizing my life.
Yeah.
A year ago, and I got rid of 2 baskets of cables.
Oh my God.
And the beauty of it is that they went in 5 minutes on Craigslist. Like they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like it's a basket of cables, you get what you get. They probably work, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A cable's
because
a cable.
everybody needs them.
Right.
So speaking of needing them, like, what do you normally pack for cables?
I mean, you know, I try to keep it slim, but you know, it's mostly, I've got my guitar cables, right?
Right.
The ones that go from my bass guitar to my amplifier. Shielded, mostly, 1/4 inch. You've got the ones that go, the little like patch pedal board.
Yeah.
The minis.
Yeah. So some of these instrument cables though, what, is there a type that you prefer?
I do have a tendency, you know, because they're on the road and because they're moving, like I usually just buy the ones with the warranty.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like the Best Buy warranty guy.
Like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like it has to have a lifetime, like exchange, no questions or whatever.
No questions. Although I've never questioned it, I'm told there's no question. Has any musician ever brought back a cable? I don't know. We'll find that out maybe by some of the feedback. But I mean, aside from that, of course, you got your pedals. I always keep like extras. I keep some of those like, pedal board cables, and I keep some XLRs, those microphone cables.
Right.
And I keep different sizes of them as well. Right.
Like different lengths and stuff.
Different lengths.
Yeah.
Speaker cables for the cabinet, 1/4 inch also speak on.
Yeah.
So kind of your basic run of the mill bag of cables.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you got?
I mean, mostly the same, honestly. Yeah. And, I do carry a short XLR patch cable, and the reason for that is kind of funny. Like my setup when we're in a small stage, like I'm normally running sound,
Right?
And so often I'm pulling the DI off my amp onto the board, and the board literally is sitting on top of my amp usually,
Right?
Because it's like that's one of those little compact, that's that compact Line 6 stage skateboard.
Yep.
And so I have this little XLR patch cable that just comes out of my DI, doop-a-doop-a-doop,
Perfect.
boom, right down into the board on top of it. So, maybe it's an insurance policy. Like if the board drops off, that'll hold it. But no, I doubt it. It'll just.
It's more just like happiness knowing that like the length of the cable matches
It's
the
perfect.
distance.
Yeah. It's like perfect for that.
Little bits of
exact
happiness.
run. Yeah. And it's so small, it will fit anywhere.
Right.
One other thing that I carry is like a power cord, an IEC power cord. Like that's the kind you've seen. The kind they're grounded, and they've got 3. Like it's got a funky, like almost like half a stop sign.
Yep.
Form to it. Like
Right.
it's the kind that you find for like every computer out there and stuff like that.
So there's actually a name to that cord because I call it the computer cord that also fits into my bass amp.
The computer power cord. Yeah. I think they call them IEC. But
That's super hip.
yeah.
Yeah. We just all learned that. You're welcome.
Ding. I'm going to put a little ding in there like here. That'll be amazing.
You're welcome. Yeah. Do you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, now that I know that name, I keep 2 lengths of IECs in my bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A short length like for my amp, and then I have like a cheap one that I got at when my local Radio Shack was going out of business.
Yeah.
And I bought like a 20-foot one, and it comes in handy every now and then.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
It's white, which is weird to have like a white cable on the stage, but
And depending on where you run it, right?
Right.
Like I think that I bought some power cables a couple years ago, and I think I got them off Amazon or something like that. I mean,
Sure.
I can't remember who made them, but I specifically bought these power cables that were like 14 gauge or something, like 12
Right.
or 14 gauge, something like that. They're really thick.
Yep.
And they're made to handle like, you can use them outdoors, and they're like, I can't remember, like 18 feet long or something like that, 15 or 18
Right.
feet long. And so they're perfect for like, powered speakers that are up on stands. And then you have to run down the pole and then a little ways on the stage to get to the power box or whatever.
Right.
Best things I ever bought, man. Like they have come in handy so many times.
Yeah. Because when you start to manage the distance, like the length of those cords, no one ever takes into consideration like where it's got to come down, like what pole it has to come down and where it has to go back up and all of that. So.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess mostly, I mean, power cable is what it is. I guess mainly people, if they're still listening at this point, they're interested in like the more of like the sound cabling.
Yeah. Well, what about like, so is there a quality piece to cords and cables?
Well, yeah, I think up to a point at least, right? I mean, you talked about like the lifetime warranty thing. I mean, there are a couple brands out there. I mean, again, we don't get endorsements or advertising money from anybody. So, we can mention brand names and it's just, our opinion. Monster comes to mind,
Right.
As being one of the pretty reliable brands. I just usually don't buy bargain basement brands anymore.
Right.
It usually isn't worth it. Like what I save is not worth the unpredictability, like oh, you happened to step on your cord once and now it doesn't work anymore. Right. As opposed to, I've got a monster cable that I'm still carrying around in my bass bag.
Yeah.
Right. That I've been using as my main instrument to amp cable for like 6 years now.
Yeah.
Right. I can't tell you how many gigs I've done with it. Hundreds.
Right.
And it's fine. Right. I mean, I've stepped on it and God knows what's happened to it during that time. And it's been fine.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's a point where, I don't know, where people start touting features of, oh, it's oxygen free, gold plated, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. At some point to me, it's like the numbers just, they don't add up. Right. I just don't think it's worth it.
Right. Beyond
a certain point. Like you could pay $200 for an 18-foot instrument cable, but is that really where you should be putting that $200? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Maybe.
Maybe
the tonality comes out.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe it just sings at a certain level.
I just feel like, I don't know. Personally, I'll tell you, I will switch the day somebody posts double-blind survey results, right, across a number of, dedicated, very apt listeners, and they do a double-blind test, scientifically, rigorous, to show what people really thought. And if somebody does that, that's when I'll think a little different. Like, okay, I can spend over $50 or $60 for a cable and it makes sense.
Sounds like a hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, somebody out there can do that. Maybe who knows? Maybe it'll be like somebody's thesis or something in music school. But what about you? What's your take on the quality issue?
Yeah, I've definitely been in a period where I bought cheap cables and they die quickly, right? Like they can't take the abuse.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I just make sure it's got nice quality, like shielded tips and kind of run from there. But I have gone into the whole like warranty thing because I feel like it's not about taking advantage of the warranty so much as it is that there's companies that are willing to put their name out there to have a warranty.
Yeah.
Right. They just happen to last longer in that level of abuse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it depends
they're going to stand behind their product, then
right.
That means something.
And it kind of depends on what I'm using it for. So, but for like studio use, they don't move, right? They sit, hopefully they're sitting and they're just in one place.
Right.
Nice. Everything is soft and kind of, no hard, rough edges like hitting them or beating them up or being thrown around.
Yeah.
So I have gone a little bit kind of close to that bargain basement level. Not quite bargain basement, but a niche with it, a notch above.
Yeah.
But then, of course, just like being any other musician, you get curious and I see like the Fender coil, the white coil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The white coil.
Yeah.
That's the one that I always look at. I'm like, one day I'm going to spend my money on that.
Right. And have that like vintage looking coiled
cable. Is it my bass playing going to get better? Probably is the answer to that.
You're definitely going to play.
Definitely. Is it a definitely or probably?
No, it's a definitely.
It's a definitely. It is kind of cool. It's a great idea. It's a coil.
I will fess up to one thing, which is that, quality, I will definitely, like, I kind of kick it a little bit to the back seat when it comes to mic cables for stage PA, because I buy them at pretty low prices and ridiculously often.
Yeah.
Just thinking that, hey, this cable cost me $5 and I will tell you there are particular, like I've bought enough of these from, like I've bought one at a time from different places to see what I'd get.
Right.
And then based on that, zeroed in on the ones that I was going to buy again in larger quantities. And, you can look, there's actually a pile, like there's a recent pile over here of cables that I stripped out of my PA bag because I had two of them that just, they're like shorted out of the box. You plug them in and it's like, zzz, and immediately I was like, okay, never buying those again. Right.
Yeah.
And so pulled all of them out because I just didn't want to deal with when they went bad. But then there's a couple other makers. I don't pay any more than I did for those, like the cables that we're using right now from these microphones.
Yeah.
And they've worked great. I have some of them that have, like the only ones that have died have literally been from abuse by bandmates.
Yep.
So those, because those get treated so harshly, I actually made a conscious decision to buy cheap because I knew that they were going to get abused and I didn't want to be spending the kind of money over and over for like really good microphone cables that were just going to get destroyed on the road. Right. That just comes like when you have bandmates who aren't, use all the care or whatever, then yeah. Here in the studio though, on the other hand, like, I'd actually consider buying up to some nicer, microphone cables just, for use here. Yeah. Because they're never going to move.
Right. There's also the Speak On.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is like, I bought actually 2 times I bought some generic Speak-Ons.
Yeah.
That spoke off. Totally didn't.
Their speak was not on. Their speak game was not on.
They were just, they just didn't say anything. I was like, you guys are speaking on, but you're not.
But you're really off.
You're not saying anything.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Not working at all.
Yeah. There's something in that quality. There's something in that mid-range.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you're looking for value.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But when we start talking about like cords and cables, there's different, and lengths and whatnot. Does size matter, Paul?
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that, Dave. Go ahead. You answer. Answer your own question.
No, go ahead. Touch it. Touch it, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh man, things are breaking bad here at Practical Bass. No, but in seriousness, right? Like, have you found like a difference in, I don't know whether we're talking about length or
of
girth.
Just or either. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you? Are there certain lengths of cable that you will like either you go out of your way to buy or that you avoid?
I'm actually really picky about this because I feel like the length is important for a number of different reasons, right? Mostly I'm trying to get the shortest as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to get like that least amount of like length that the music has to travel through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also trying to create the least amount of mess in my space.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Chord is mess. We've all been to studios where it's super clean. We've all been on stages where it's super clean. And we've all been on stages and studios where it's super just cord and cable-y.
Yeah, just a mess. Like everywhere you walk, you're stepping on cables and whatnot. Yeah, and having runs be like the right length for where they want to go and routing them well and whatever is like can make the big difference like in how you feel on stage.
Yeah. No, and it is that's true. It's like for me, and I guess everybody's different, right? But for me, it's like a happy place to go onto a stage or go into a studio where there's just like cleanliness. Like it's just clean lines. You're not tripping over anything. You're on stage. You don't have to like, oh, where do my feet get to go?
Yeah.
My feet should get to go wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm playing music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being an artist, like I don't want to have to say like, oh, I can only stay within like this square 2 feet or whatever. Same goes for the studio. But so for me, to that point, it is important, and it takes a while sometimes for me to like re-gear, right? Like I'll have like my gear for whatever project I'm working at, and then I'll re-gear and sort of like, get new cables that fit the right size, space, or whatever.
Right.
So that's how I feel about it. That's an opinion piece.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's a valid way to go. I mean, having a messy stage can just it can bug me, I think, as much as the next person, maybe,
Right.
maybe more. Yeah. So, I mean, if anybody hasn't heard it, in our last episode, we talked about, it was in the context of DIs, but we talked about balanced and unbalanced cables and how they work, right? And so these balanced cables can be longer and you don't run into as much issue with interference or noise. But at the same time, like you said, you can have a really messy stage as a result of having a ton of cables that are all way too long for the spaces that you're playing in. Or, if you're playing in somebody's venue where they have a lot of pre-wired stuff, you hope that they've done the nice thing and, like, I don't know, there's like a snake box or something that you can attach to that makes things easy, or, but that's not always the case, unfortunately. And the thing to me about being on stage is I don't like being restricted on stage. Right. So to me, like, mic cables are usually not where I get too wound up. Like, usually I can find ways to route them that make sense. And, I typically have, like, I've got a ton of 20 and 25 foot mic cables, because that's just like a standard length. I've got, tons of those. And if that ends up, like, if 20 feet ends up being too big for a space, I'll deal with it. If it's that small a space, it's probably a small ensemble and I'm not running that many of them. Right. But I really, for me, the instrument cable is a big deal. Like, I know that, like, what is it, 10 or 12 feet? You find a lot of those standard cables are like 10 or 12 feet. And that is, like, for me, that has never been a decent length. Like, I've got to have like 21 and a half, 25 foot, it's got to be a length where I'm not constantly worried about, am I going to run out of, length before I walk over to the other side of the stage and, like, kind of jamming with the guy who's on the other side of the stage.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I should probably think about wireless, but I've just never found something that I was like, I was so enamored of and decided it was worth it. Now it's time to go portable, it's gotta be small, right? Cause we talk about traveling light, and I just haven't found anything that fits. Like, it's got all the features I want, and it's light, and it's portable, and it's reliable. Right. I just haven't gotten there. So for me, it's like, I just got to have a nice long instrument cable.
Yeah. That's definitely the dream.
Yeah.
That's definitely nice. Like, and it's funny because these are just our opinions. Like, for me, I go for the bare minimum.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'd rather, if I'm doing sound, I'd rather put my guitar down and then, like, shimmy over to the board or do things just so that when I'm in my place, like, I just have the chord that hits the ground, skips it for a few feet, and then goes right up to my amp. Yeah. And then that's it. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. It's just like, it's whatever, like, wherever that happy place is. But
So, I mean, I think this is, we've got a couple different opinions, I guess, on how to make the cabling situation work and what cables we like. You talked about speak-on cables earlier, right? And I think that the thing that people will hopefully know is that, the speak-on cables, there's a reason for those to exist, right? Those were invented to carry, like, high-powered signal, like high wattage signal, from one place to another. So, you're not going to find, like, a speak-on cable for, to go from your bass to your amp, or from your, from your microphone or something like that. You're not going to find a DI box with speak-on cable on it, right? It's designed to go from amps to speakers, essentially, right? You carry a very high current signal. So hopefully people know about that. And you talked about the speak-ons that didn't work. I actually ran into that not long ago, and it was an off-brand speak-on cable. And so I actually what I discovered was that when I did some testing on it with a cable tester, I figured out that the problem was not in the cable itself. It was actually in the connectors, which are a lot of times those are the cheap part of
That's where
cable.
it's at. Right.
Yeah.
It's the connector.
Yeah. You'll find that in mic cables too, like cables that go bad. I mean, I don't have a real number for this, but in my experience, the ones that I've had go bad, like 4 times out of 5, it's actually in the problem's in the connector. Like it's become the soldering joint has become loose or whatever. Like it's just gotten disconnected or not well connected or whatever the case.
Because after that, what is it? It's just the cable.
Yeah, yeah. And you can break cable, but it's harder than you think.
Yeah.
So the Speak-On cable that I bought was it turned out the connectors were junk, and I went and bought. I think I paid like $20 or $25 for the Speak-On cable. And what I did was, I went to the store and you could buy real Neutrik Speak-On connectors, right? Like the real things.
Right.
And I think it was like $8 for a pair of them. Right.
Huh.
So I went and just bought new connectors, and wiring these things in is completely easy. Like you can do it yourself with a screw. All you need is a screwdriver. You don't solder them at all.
Right.
Which makes them amazing to work. That's one of the great things about Speak-Ons is that there's no soldering involved in it at all, like by definition. So all I had to do was just restrip the wires, get them wired in, screw down the posts.
Yep.
And that was it. I was ready to go. And I've never had a problem with that cable since.
That's cool.
So those are pretty useful. Do you label your cables? How anal retentive do you get like in the studio or live even?
Yeah.
That.
Oh, super.
I knew that answer was going to be there. I knew you were going to say that. So like to what extent? Like how do you do that?
I mean, so I have, I use my own color tape for each project.
Uh-huh.
I'm that bad. So like if it's, if there's if the color of the tape around my cables are matching somebody else's, I'll just pick a new color. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be yellow for this one.
Yeah.
Or I'll be white for this one.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, red. And the funny thing is too, like, in one of my bands, I'm borrowing cables, and I love it because it's somebody who's like even more like they have like not only a colored tape but also somehow in it like a printout of their name.
Oh, yeah.
And then like a clear over it.
Oh, they've used the what you call it, like the brother label printer.
Yeah,
thingy.
like the label. the
Oh, that's amazing.
That has their name on it. I'm like, oh yeah, that definitely.
Yeah.
No one's gonna mistake that.
Yeah. No one can walk off with it and say, how could I have known?
Yeah. And honestly, it's not. I don't get crazy about like in the studio situation when it's a band that's sharing a studio. I do get a little crazy about it because there's so much stuff going on there that like you're contributing so much. You just want to make sure that like, if and when that project ends, that you can at least come back with like the $100 of cables that you put in, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that's just like, it's fair for everybody.
Yeah.
No one knows like, oh, did I take that from him or whatever?
Right.
Like super clear. For gigs, like I like labeling just so that I know which is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like, yeah, of course, that's why we label, but like, so that for the next gig, this was mine, or if it got swapped out, like I don't, I just want to keep track of what's mine so I have like the right cables that I'm using or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've got like there's a specific cable that I have that I know is my, I was telling you about that one instrument cable, right? Which is my it goes with me wherever my bass goes. It's with me.
Yeah.
Right? So I always have something I can plug in.
Right.
And there's no mistaking it for other cables. They don't make it anymore, and
that's perfect.
It's very distinctive. But I don't actually label, like I have no labeling on my cables for my PA stuff. It's all like, I mean, literally like straight out of the box, they're all black or whatever. And and the only thing that I think has saved me from the thing that you're talking about is that I bring all that stuff for the gigs.
Right.
So everybody knows it's all mine. Right. And that eventually, like that could bite me. If I show up for a gig where it's like, I start mixing that up with people, it could get really bad. The drummer that I work with sometimes, he has a specific way of doing it. It's like he puts yellow, like 2 rings of yellow tape,
right? And
that's his code. Like he knows that those are his cables,
right? And
it's brilliant. It's absolutely the way to go. I have not applied that level of care, and I think what is going to cure that is the first time somebody walks off with like 3 of my cables, right? I'm going to be like, I thought I had more cables than this, and I guess I better label them.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, being in a large band, like a band that has like 10 plus people,
you learn fast.
Yeah, it's like I grew up almost as an only child, but like my friends that had, a lot of kids in their family, like 5 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
It gets labeled.
You learn to write your name and things.
It's super easy. Just fix that. Yeah. I mean, the other, I think, another thing that I think about, like when we're talking about cables in general, sometimes they go bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I never know what to do. Like for me, I just toss them. I don't know what else to do.
Well, I mean,
is there another fix?
I mean, that's one way. Right? I mean, like you got to take care of cables, obviously, and we'll talk about some ways for that. But, in my case, I have a cable tester that I carry with me, and it's not like a fancy one. It's like, again, we talk about Behringer a bit because, there is some good stuff that they make.
Yeah.
And, one of the things they make is this, it's their, I don't know, it's like has called CT100 or something like that.
Right.
Which literally the CT stands for cable tester.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
But 100.
Yeah. But 100.
Which sounds good. They should have named it CT1000. That would have.
Then it would have been 10 times as good. Yeah. But it's a good cable tester. And, so I bring that with me and, it's always in my gear. And it's real easy to test cables there. Like you can find very quickly because of the way the lights work on it.
Yeah.
You can find whether the problem is like a break in the line or whether it's actually the connector, when you wiggle things properly. Like if you wiggle part of if you can find a part of the cable that's bad, when you wiggle it, the lights are going to come on saying there's intermittent signal.
Huh.
And then you can wiggle smaller and smaller pieces of it until you narrow down into where the break actually is. But again, like I said before, I found that breaks are not nearly as often as just having the connectors go bad.
Right.
Like that is the part that really ends up being the problem more often than not.
Sure. And that's the part that's taken the most abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the cable's hanging off the end, it gets yanked, and then it's basically you're almost kind of ripping it out of joint when you do that.
Right. Which brings us to like the whole like caring for the cable.
Yeah.
The cheapest part of your rig, right? It's like the $10, $15. Yeah. And you actually like, I don't know. I think that there needs to be care there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure, your amplifier can go bad or whatnot, but the first thing that's going to go bad is like, the $5 connector that's on your cable, that's the thing that is going to be the first to go.
Yeah.
So yeah. And another piece of it is education, right? Like, I go through this with bandmates and stuff. Like, since I'm bringing the PA, right, part of the price for that is like when we're tearing down at the end of the night, unless I'm getting paid more than everybody else, everybody's helping tear down the PA at the end. You got to go with got to go through teaching your bandmates how you want your cables coiled up, and there are different ways to do it.
Sure.
I think that is one of those holy war arguments we probably don't want to get into, but I've got a way that I do mine, and you got to show people how you want it done, and exercise appropriate care. And however you decide to do that, the thing is, remember that cables are very flexible, but they're not break proof. They're not infinitely flexible.
Not indestructible.
You can't take them and bend it 180 degrees in like the way that you would, pinch a twist tie or something like that. You're going to break that cable if you do something like that. Right. So you just, keep them in loose coils somehow, one way or the other, however you tie them up. Don't take that for granted. Don't coil them up too tightly.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I try to, I know there's so many different ways of going about it, but at the end of the day, I just try not to treat my cables in a, let me put it this way. I treat them in a way that I treat the rest of my rig.
Yeah.
Right. Like with care. I don't toss my bass into the bag.
Yeah.
Right. I don't throw my amp off the stage to hope that it's going to be cool the next time.
Right. At the same way, you don't yank your cable out of the joint.
Right. I don't drag the tip of the cable across the cement floor or whatever. And it's not that it's not about the money, because they're not expensive, but it's just the unpredictability.
Yeah.
Right. It's like one wrong move could like cost you a lot of heartache.
You don't want to show up to your next gig finding out that you did the wrong thing last time and now you're a cable down that you really needed.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think that's probably as good a place to stop as any. I think this actually turned out a little more interesting than I feared.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, at least that's what I hope. We'll find out if the audience agrees. And speaking of which, our audience members out there, we really thank you for listening. We want to have a conversation with you, and we hope that you'll connect up with us and let us know what you think. Let us know, like, cable nightmares. What are some cables that you love? What are some cables that you hate that you've run into? We'd like to hear your stories for pro and con. Tell us about like your worst cable story. I think that could be like the best thread ever, like the worst thing that ever happened to you with your cables. And you can do that by catching up with us on our Facebook page for Practical Bass. We're also on Twitter and Google Plus and even on Instagram. You can also give us feedback at our website, practicalbass.com. There's a contact form there you can fill out, and that email from that form goes straight to Dave and me. We read everything we get and we'll respond really quickly. We'd love to hear not just stories about cables, because honestly, there can't be that many stories about cables, I guess. We'd love to hear feedback from you guys on stories or topics that you would like us to go into. We're always open to that. We've done some listener mail topics before, and we'd love to do them again. Also, you can find on our website information about subscribing. And you can find us on whatever podcatching app that you use on your mobile device or your computer. That might be the Podcasts app on your iPhone. It might be Google Play Music on your Android phone. It might be iTunes on your Mac computer or Stitcher Radio on any platform. Just about any podcatching app, you're going to be able to find us. Just do a search for Practical Bass. And when our black and white logo comes up, look for the subscribe link and hit that, and you'll get a fresh episode of Practical Bass delivered to you every week with all the latest news and information and tips and advice on making your gigs and gear better. Because that's our purpose here. We want to help elevate your working bass life. And so until next time, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
And this has been Practical Bass.
Thanks for listening. All right, 13 takes. All right, come on. We're going to do this.
Number 14 is the magic one. Crack in the neck. Oh, yeah. Let's go.
You're like, and I'm like, you went the whole time without fucking up? That's great.
That's
funny.